All right, so chances are in 2012, actually at the end of 2012, you're all sitting there reviewing what's happened in your business over the past year and thinking, how can I make 2013 super awesome? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about tonight with Michelle Moore, who's a local photographer in the Seattle area, but she is, to steal a word from Rachel, what's her face? Gosh, this is an awful intro. I just forgot her name. She's bananas. She's amazing. This girl she does extraordinary work. She's known by everyone, so this is going to be an awesome show. Make sure that you stay tuned for the whole thing. Jennifer Dono. I'm the host of Young Female Entrepreneurs, and you're actually watching our 41st episode. We had a couple little issues starting off, but it's going to be so much better moving forward because we have Michelle Moore on, who's a local photographer, like I said. Local is very relative, I guess, because while she may live and do some business in Seattle, the girl is all over the place. So again, we're going to be talking about reviewing 2012. There's a simultaneous YFE chat, so hashtag YFE chat on Twitter that's happening. And so it's going to be interactive, really exciting. You can ask her a lot of different questions throughout the chat. Make sure that you introduce yourself because half of the fun about YFE TV is meeting other young entrepreneurs like yourself. So, but before we get started, I wanted to go ahead and give some shout out thanks to our sponsors. First one, so episode 41 is brought to you by Oval Eye TV. So Oval Eye TV is actually, I'm an owner of it. It hosts and produces live video events built to meet your objective. Visit ovaleye.tv to request a free 30-minute consultation today to find out more about going live with your brand. And by hitthemicmarketing.com. Hit the Mic Marketing helps rock star entrepreneurs amplify their business. Visit hitthemicmarketing.com to take the stress out of your online marketing. So thank you very much to Hit the Mic Marketing. They are actually Stacy, who's our city coordinator out in Phoenix. Her team is actually on our Twitter handle right now. So if you're talking to @YF Entrepreneur, you're talking to one of Stacy's team members. So much thanks to that firm. Make sure that you check out hitthemicmarketing.com. So before we bring on Michelle, I have a couple things that I want to make sure that we cover before bringing her on. And the first one is, of course, that YFECon. So a lot of you attended that. That was over the summer, or actually in November. Oh my gosh. Losing my mind sometimes. So it was in November, and it was a virtual conference, and we brought on some stellar young female entrepreneurs on for some peer-to-peer mentorship, and the replays are available. So if you attended the conference, make sure that you log in and check out those videos. And the replays are also available for $10. So if you weren't able to show up live, you can still get the training and all of the stuff that we talked about on the replay videos. So again, tonight's, if you're just tuning in live now, our theme is review, and our guest is Michelle Moore. And her Twitter handle is actually @MoorePhoto. So if you want to make sure, actually, Moore, it's MOORE, just to make sure that you guys know that. She's over on Twitter, so make sure that you follow her up and check out what she's been tweeting about. Last week the theme was persistence with Ashley Taylor. You can see it back behind me. It was a great episode. There was a lot of chat happening and a lot of discussion around the idea of when things go bad, how to keep moving forward, because good eventually comes from all of this work. Fingers crossed for most people. And you can find that replay over on youngfemaleentrepreneurs.com or on YouTube at youtube.com/YFentrepreneur, or on iTunes in both the video and the audio format, so you can listen to this while you're at the gym. So the next couple weeks, there's a couple topics that we're going to be talking about that's really cool. The 20th is goal setting. The 27th is change. And then January 3rd, our big push into 2013. Man, we've got some seriously cool guests coming up. I mean, we've been really, really lucky to have amazing people like Michelle on, and in 2012. But in 2013, our first guest to open it up is the author of The Pumpkin Plan. So The Pumpkin Plan is a book that we read in Kickstart Kitchen's Bootstrap Book Club. And that's a totally free book club that you should all join, because what it is it's a lot of entrepreneurs that are bootstrapping it, and we get in there and we discuss different topics in the book. And KickstartKitchen.com are the women behind that. And it's our official young female entrepreneur endorsed book club. And they're going to be interviewing Mike. So I won't be on here. It'll just be the Kickstart Kitchen ladies and Mike, Mike Michalowicz, the author of the book. So it's going to be a really fun one. Make sure that you have January 3rd on. Next week's, who's going to be talking about goal setting with us, is actually Erin. Erin Anacker, I think is how you pronounce her last name. She is fabulous. She's one of the most well-connected graphic designers I know out there. She does a magazine that's very new. It's called Glimpse Magazine, and she's got some killer graphic designers that she features in it. It's beautifully laid out, of course, being Erin. And so she's going to be talking to us about goal setting, especially like with the creative mindset. I think it'll be really interesting, solopreneur type stuff. So it's going to be a great show next week. So before, again, Michelle's going to come on in just a few minutes, but before we do, I want to make sure that we cover a couple things. So the first one is that next week on the YFE blog, I'm going to be introducing you to a couple city coordinators that you haven't met yet. So Seattle's just getting started, so if you're in the Seattle area, we've got 2 city coordinators that I'm going to be introducing to you next week, and they're fantastic, and you're going to absolutely love them, Christina and Tessa, and I have their photos up there at the... Yep, there's Christina, and then I think Tessa should be following. So make sure that you go to youngfemaleentrepreneurs.com. Nope, that's Stacy. She's in Phoenix. There's Tessa, and then of course Stacy, who I was talking about earlier with hitthemic.marketing.com. She's starting up in Phoenix, and she's already got a great group going, and so does the Seattle girls actually. So make sure you check those out. So last week we asked you to tout in your lessons learned in 2012. Tout.com, of course, it's a 15-second video update service that you can go in and share what's happening via video, kind of like Twitter, but it's with video status updates that you can send to Facebook and Twitter, and it's lots of fun. So we asked that question of you guys, and these are the responses we got. So thank you so much for touting.
Hey, this is Helen here from ReArter. Lesson learned for the year? Time is definitely a teacher, a resource, and an expense. Learn how to deal and, most importantly, value this variable wisely. Wishing you nothing but success.
Hi, I'm Carissa with Small Businesses Do It Better, and one of the most important things I learned in 2012 was to ask for things. If you need help with something, if you want to work with somebody, ask and you will be surprised at the answer by just asking.
Hi, it's Marissa from Marissa's Wellbeing and Health. I'm also the YFE City Coordinator for New York City. My biggest lesson learned in 2012 was that I have everything I need to succeed within me.
Hi, I'm Raven, founder of Miranda Lane Life and Leadership Coaching. In 2012, I've learned the value of community. I've needed support and suggestions as I've built my business, and so I'm very grateful for the women that have helped me along the way.
Hey, it's Stacey Harris from Hit the Mic Marketing. I want to share my big lesson for 2012, and it was definitely to be myself. To not worry so much about fitting into a mold that I thought I needed to fill, and more about just being me and putting myself out there.
So this is for YFE, what have I learned in the last year? I'd say go with your gut. I quit my corporate job to pursue something that I absolutely love. I'm working harder than ever and just really enjoying what I'm doing.
I'm Rowan from howtosingforyourlife.com. The thing that I feel I've learned this year is that action that I took maybe even 6 months, maybe even 12 months ago can still come through now. Forgetting about the outcome for a while, because sometimes they do come back to you, but it just takes longer than you think.
All right, everyone. So through this entire chat, again, we're on the hashtag YFE chat. I want to make sure that you're touting or you're tweeting in your responses to the questions too. And make sure that you ask questions of Michelle, because the girl, like I said, is all over the place. So let me read you her bio before we introduce her on. Michelle Moore is a fashion editorial and high school senior portrait photographer working in both Seattle and Los Angeles. She is an internationally respected senior portrait photographer and is highly sought out for her portrait services. Seriously, her portraits are gorgeous. They're like Vogue magazine material. It's amazing. So Michelle loves helping high school seniors reveal their inner and outer beauty during her unique boutique-like portrait experience. In addition, she focuses on bringing awareness to a healthy body image through her fashion and celebrity editorial work. In this capacity, she has collaborated with many local and national magazines on editorial and celebrity assignments. In 2011, she worked again with 90210 television star Jessica Lowndes photographing the cover of her most recent music EP entitled Nothing Like This. Michelle is also growing her commercial photography client basis, including Amazon.com and Report Shoes in 2012. Thank you so much for being on the show, Michelle. Welcome onto YFE TV, the live show.
Hello.
So Michelle, I mean, that was a really big bio, and like I said, you seem to be all over the place. So my first question that I want to ask you, and again, if you're watching live, make sure that you tweet in or chat in questions for Michelle. But in the book A Place of Yes, Bethany Frankel, she's one of a lot of young entrepreneurs look up to her. She said that all roads lead to Rome. This is it's a popular topic for her. She talks about it a lot. Now, as you review your past experiences, have all roads led to Rome for you? What was your background, and how did it get you to where you are today?
Well, I actually have not read that book. I didn't know she wrote that book, but I thought that was a really interesting phrase, and I'm not sure I entirely agree with it. Actually, because I feel like a lot of things that have happened to me in my career have sort of been being at the right place at the right time and meeting the right people at the right time. And I don't necessarily know if certain opportunities hadn't presented themselves, if I would still be where I am today. But that isn't to say I wouldn't still be here, just maybe my journey would have been a little bit different. But are you asking me like how I got started at the very, very beginning, or kind of how I launched into my senior portrait business?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about how you got started, because YFE actually did a profile on Michelle last year, and you talked a little bit about how you were in college and how your majors changed and how you got into, how you basically took something that you're passionate about and made it into a career.
So yes, about the senior portraits. Or from the beginning?
Let's start from the college experience and go from there.
I attended the University of Washington in Seattle, and I had done a little bit of photography in high school, and I took a black and white darkroom class and I totally fell in love with photography as a medium. And then when I went to the University of Washington, I didn't necessarily start out with the intention of being a photographer or being a photographer as a career. So I didn't really do much photography my freshman year. And the reason I got started, I had some friends who were in a band, and they knew that I was interested in photography and had a camera, and they asked me to come to their show and take pictures of them. And that was sort of what I jumped back in with that. And in college, I worked with musicians and did a lot of live concerts, and that was like the cool thing to do when you were 19, because you got to go to rock shows and be on stage, and it was super cool. But I didn't have any direction or idea of what I was still doing yet. And being at UW, I was in the art program, and I had a lot of friends that were actors. And so I started doing headshots for a lot of my friends, and getting all of my friends to model for me, and just doing projects for school and things on the side, and just doing anything and everything, family portraits for people, random events. I started assisting a wedding photographer and second shooting at weddings, and that was how I got into doing weddings. I did weddings for 4.5 years. And through all of this, I was trying everything out and shooting anything. And then, I started my business kind of in the midst of all of that. And then when you're starting your business, you do anything and everything that pays, and the little bits that you get here and there. And it wasn't until 2007 I shot a senior portrait for a friend of a friend. And that was sort of what kickstarted my senior portrait career. I put it up on my blog that I had just started in 2006, and I was noticing that people were Googling senior portraits all the time and coming to my work, and it sort of dawned on me, maybe the senior portrait thing is something I should try out, since everybody keeps coming and looking for that. And that was sort of what sparked the senior portrait thing. That's kind of how I got started.
No, and I feel like a lot of photographers have a similar map to how they got going. And so I think it's refreshing for a lot of people to hear that, okay, someone as successful as Michelle Moore started off in kind of the trying to figure out what I'm doing phase two, because it's hard to imagine successful people like that sometimes. So as far as when you're moving into 2012, we're talking about review here, the theme for everyone that's just tuning in live now. Is there any type of review exercise that you do as a creative and looking at, your past work, maybe even, profit margins, all that fun stuff? What type of review exercise do you do at the end of the year?
I'm still fine-tuning that. When I first started out, I actually... at least when I first started with my senior portrait business, is at the end of the year, I created a little document that I think it was like with one of those online survey programs like PollDaddy. I just created a little questionnaire that just had some basic questions, and I sent it to all of my clients just to get some feedback as to what worked, what they liked, what products I didn't offer that they wanted, what products that they did like, and that was something I did and really paid a lot of attention to when I was first developing my senior portrait market. And that was really useful to hear directly from my clients what they got out of it. And I think something that I do now that is really important and useful to me is goal planning for the next year. And I guess I need to work more on reflecting back on the achievements I've made at the end of each year, because I am so focused on what is coming up for me in the future.
Right.
And so I know that this year is a lot of things happen, a lot of really great opportunities. And I really feel like I grew leaps and bounds. And I think that reviewing this year is going to be especially important to me to see what is working and where I'm going next year, because there's a lot of big changes coming up for my business. And so I definitely think reviewing your business is extremely important, especially as our community grows with social media. I know a lot of photographers and any creative struggle with looking at others and what other people are doing, and we don't stop and reflect enough on the successes that we've made in our own business, because those are going to be different than other people. So it's definitely important to review like where you started at the beginning of the year and what has worked for you, and creating goals for the new year so that you keep getting to where you want to be.
And it's funny that you bring that up, because last week we talked a lot about the idea of subscribing to other people's, and actually one of the girls within the YFE LA group was talking about that. How many of us subscribe to other people's work, or we follow them on Facebook and we look at what they're doing, and it somehow gets into our subconscious and affects the way that we create. But as far as looking at your past year and figuring out what you did, I mean, recently you just did a shoot of Coco and Kelly collaboration, which was amazing. Amazing. It was just gorgeous. And it feels like all of your shoots, whether it's a Coco and Kelly or if it's a high fashion, whatever it is, it looks like it should belong in some form of high fashion magazine. It's always gorgeous work. So how do you decide what jobs to take on? If this doesn't fit your style, or if this doesn't fit your profile of the client that you want to work with, what goes into deciding what jobs you want to take on?
That's a great question. And I know that I've said this in a lot of interviews that I've done and online a lot. It is the biggest thing is putting out the work that you want to get. And so whether it's on your blog or your Facebook page or your portfolio, is placing work that you enjoy doing so that more clients that like that kind of work are attracted to hiring you and wanting to get a similar sort of aesthetic. And so I think that a lot of the clients are attracted to what I'm putting out there because that's what I like to do, and therefore it just, it builds on each other. And the Coco and Kelly shoot was really, really fun, and I really enjoyed working with Cassandra, and she is someone that I have been trying to reach out to for almost 2 years. So it took that long for me to finally work with her. Wow. So I think that is a really important thing that I also wanted to touch on, especially for people wondering, how do you get those clients? And it's, it's a lot of persistence. And, for every like 100 emails you send out, you might get a hit from one person. Like, it's just constantly reaching out to the people that you want to work with as well. And that's how that transpired. So sort of both of those things working together. And I rarely get any emails anymore about clients that are not what I do, because I don't put out work that I don't do. So I don't get like an inquiry for a wedding because I don't shoot them. If I do, I'll refer it to somebody that, I know and trust. So that's kind of how I go from there.
So on that note, Jules Taggart, who's in the chat, is asking, with a product like Senior Portraits that hopefully only happen once, how do you bring in repeat business with weddings, anniversaries, babies? There seems to be more of a way to keep in touch. So how have you brought in people repeat business? What she's asking.
I guess for seniors, there was no repeat business there because they are graduating one time. But I do get, the younger sister or the friend, or maybe I don't really do too many of these anymore, but I used to do a lot of headshots. And so the way that I would get repeat business is maybe when the client was 15, she was doing some acting for theater, and I did her headshots, and then she would come back to me for her senior portraits. And I think the best way to get a repeat client is to give them an experience that they are not going to get anywhere else. As a photographer, I think beyond your work, you're selling yourself as a person, and it's about making your clients feel comfortable. And I think that's like the biggest successful part of my business is my personality. And when people meet me, they are instantly comfortable and they have fun at the shoot. And that's why word of mouth and, getting people to come back and bring their for my parents and getting them to bring their younger daughters back to me is just creating that experience that they just love.
Yeah. So before we get back into some of the wifey questions, J. Edgar, who's on the chat, asked, with being as successful as you are running and building your business, how do you manage to balance your work and your personal life? What tips could you offer to stay balanced? And it looks like you do a good job at like having fun and work and separating the two, but that could just be like Facebook page lies.
Hi, John. The biggest thing for me is that's something I've really, really struggled with, especially at the beginning of my career, and something I'm much better at. And one of them is creating boundaries. I have work hours and email hours, so I'm supposed to turn off my computer at 5 o'clock every night. Sometimes that doesn't always happen, but over the years, I have trained my clients to know that I only email between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and I have it listed in the bottom of my email signature. On Friday, I put an auto reply on my email, and I do not reply to emails over the weekend, and I really try to take the weekend to spend time with me, myself and my family, and so
now. Is the business still waiting for you on Monday if you don't reply to it over the weekend? Have you ever lost work because you don't reply the second you get it on your phone?
No, and I don't get email to my phone anymore. That was the biggest change I made that really helped me with my sanity. I read the 4-Hour Work Week, and there was a lot of things I took away from that in how to balance personal and business. And taking email off my phone has really helped. And so I think the biggest thing is managing your client's expectations. So if you put an auto reply on your email and it says, I am not going to read this until Monday, they will wait. And if they have an emergency, they can call me and I'll call them back. But I don't think that I've lost out on business from sticking to hours, because although I'm a freelance photographer, I still am a business, and and people have to respect business hours and my personal life. So
I think that's a great tip because that's something that comes out a lot is the idea of email and how it takes away from our creativity and how as a business owner we shouldn't be checking email all day long because I mean, what kind of a business are you running then? You're basically just running an email machine. So the next question that I'd ask then is about, so let's say that you're a young female entrepreneur and you're just getting started. You've maybe dabbled in photography or in design, graphic design, or maybe even a fashion designer. How do you build up a portfolio? Like you were saying, you were doing the band work and your actor friends who are in college. If someone doesn't have that outlet, how can they build a portfolio and determine the direction they want to go into? What advice would you give for them?
Well, when I first started out, when I was young and 20, I did work all the time and I was always on my email. And I'm not saying that that was necessarily healthy, but it did kind of catapult me further and quicker because I was constantly trying to get out there and talk to people all the time and trying to build my client base. But and aside from that, I think when you're young and starting out, it's important, no matter what craft you're doing, is to do it all the time. I was shooting every single day. Even if it wasn't a client, I was either doing a personal project or putting together something for my portfolio. So if you don't necessarily have the clients that you want yet, it's really important that you invest money, your own money, and your time equity into creating the work that you want to get. So if, for example, there's a commercial client that I want, I might go out and shoot their product on my own or put together something very similar so that I could present it to them or put it in my portfolio so that they would see that I've done that work and capable of doing it. And it's something that is along the lines of what they might want to hire me for. And so I think that's like the biggest thing that I've learned over the last 8 years, and something I didn't know at first starting out, is that I could go out and do that on my own and create the portfolio work that I needed in my book without having to wait and hope that a client is just going to come and magically find you.
I think that's some great points there. Now we have Nina Gracie who's on the chat. She's wondering, as someone who's just starting to focus on commercial work, how do you go about conducting meetings with potential commercial clients?
Oh, that's a great question. For commercial work, since I've been doing my senior portraits for so long, that is something that sustains my business, and commercial work is something that I'm just now trying to jump into more. I think really for me, the things that have worked the best are finding connections and going to events or places where those commercial client people might be, or reaching out to them and just asking to set up a coffee date. I have found in my experience, at least since I'm a fashion photographer, is that going to fashion shows or working with the modeling agencies and just meeting all of the people in the industry and getting your name out there and creating a reputation for yourself before reaching out to those people, so that when someone finally does hear your name, they're like, oh, I've heard of Michelle Moore. She has a great reputation. I might hire her for something. This is something that takes time, lots of time, and going out there and putting in the actual physical, like FaceTime with people. And if you're reaching out to a potential client, I think it's better if you're like, if you pose to them, hey, I'd like to meet up and grab coffee, and it's not, and instead of like, hi, I'm Michelle Moore and this is my work, hire me. Your clients want, those clients, they don't want to feel like you're just trying to get something out of them. They should have something beneficial out of it as well. I know I was like starting to really ramble, so I hope this is answering your question. There's just a lot of different things that go into it, and it all kind of helps you. But I think it's important to, and also, you might email like 20 potential clients and never hear back from them. And then 6 months down the road, you might hear from one person because they saw your work and they kept it in mind, but it wasn't right for that moment. And then 6 months later, they had a project and they might contact you. And it's just about having a lot of patience and a lot of tact and constantly going after it and constantly putting in the legwork and the FaceTime.
No, I think that's we might not want to hear that. It's a lot of work and a lot of patience, because you always want that easy fix or the magic pill. But it sounds like you being so successful, you still had to put in the work. It didn't just happen overnight. It was a few years that this took for you to build up that clientele. So I think that's a great message to make sure that we're repeating. But before we go, because I know there's more questions, Michelle, will you be joining us for the after party on Twitter?
Yes, I will.
Awesome. So you guys that are watching live, before we let Michelle go to Twitter at YFE Chat. We're going to be tweeting over there for the next 30 or so minutes talking about yourselves. We're going to pose questions and you can ask about yourself, but also Michelle's going to be on. So if you have additional questions, make sure that you pop over there so you can ask her. She's going to be dedicating the next 30 minutes to you guys. So Michelle, where can we find you after this? Because you said you were going to do some new things in 2013. You're evaluating what worked well for you. Are there any secret projects that you could maybe give us a little sneak peek into, or that type of a thing?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that, especially for all of the photographers that might be watching, is I'm doing my first real life in-person photography workshop with Seniorology, and there's 4 other speakers, and we're going to be in San Diego in April. But aside from that, I'm also working on more learning opportunities for photographers via smaller workshop type learning opportunities. Basically, I can't really say more than that, but there are going to be more things coming out for photographers for learning. This year, I wrote my first ebook. It's a downloadable PDF, and it's a 65-page PDF that is how to pose and work with teen clients.
Wow.
And so that was my first learning tool that I had spent probably 2 years working on. And so that's the biggest thing. I'm going to be growing my business and hiring for my business to grow it. And I think that's really the most I can tell you at this point.
Where can we find you online? Where's your website at?
My website is michellemoore.com. That's MICHELLEMOORE. That website will take you to all of my various online portals, my fashion portfolio, my senior portfolio, my blog, and Facebook. And I mostly hang out on Instagram. And my Instagram is the same as my Twitter. It's more photo.
Awesome. I know I love following you on Instagram. It's always fun. If you like to Instagram, she always gives little Instagram tips up there, which is fun.
Yeah, and I'm actually writing an article that's coming out in January for, I forget what magazine it is, but I'm writing an article about Instagram. So I'll share that on my blog in January.
Awesome. Well, everyone, you've been watching Young Female Entrepreneurs. Huge thank you to Michelle Moore, who was our guest. Very awesome. So grateful for her to be on the show. So make sure that you stay tuned for the next 30 minutes for YFE Chat. Jump over to Twitter. Again, the hashtag is YFE Chat. It's over there in the corner right there. Jump over there and tweet with us for the next 30 minutes. Otherwise, you can catch the replays over on YouTube, on iTunes, or on youngfemaleentrepreneurs.com. I'll see you back here next Thursday with Erin. We're going to be talking about goal setting. This has been Jennifer Dono with Young Female Entrepreneurs Live Show.